What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again with the Stochastic channel. It's been a while, but we are back talking some best ball ahead of the NFL season. As you can see on the screen, we have a free best ball package. This has rankings, tiers. They're uploadable to Underdog, DraftKings, Drafters, everything you need to dominate your best ball leagues. And if you don't know what that is, we have an introductory article explaining how to play and potentially take down one of these big prize pools that these sites are offering. All that is available in the link below. Before we get started on today's video, which is going to be some tier talk, we'll talk the quarterback position. Please like the video, hit subscribe. That helps us a ton on the channel. So thank you if you've already done that. All right, we're going to talk some QB tiers in our first two videos. We're going to go through all the positions. So we'll do running back, receiver, tight end. Those will be a bit longer, just more to talk about at those positions. And today we're talking players that are undervalued at the quarterback position. This is going to depend a little bit on the individual site, as we'll get to. First player, Anthony Richardson. ADP is 57.3. All the ADPs are courtesy of Underdog Fantasy. The ranking position, QB5, that is where he sits in our ranks, which is basically where he is in ADP across sites. Quarterback is pretty tight with the rankings. You're not going to find as many players that are just egregiously priced. A few at the end of drafts we'll talk about as sleepers and overvalued players. But Richardson, this will depend on the site. On DraftKings in particular, he's pretty normal in terms of value. But on Underdog, he comes in as a pretty strong value for us. And I think this is basically just an upside question. We have him projected at his median range of outcomes, but the upside for him is legitimate QB1. He's a true dual threat, and he only played in 4 games last year, 2 of which he did not finish, and he still managed 136 yards on the ground and 4 scores. That's 5.4 yards per carry, and he finished 15th in quarterback rushing production fantasy-wise, despite playing 4 games and not having even 2 of those games where he played a full complement of snaps. If you look at what's around him, the team is elite. This offensive line is top 5. Have no problem blocking for him. Jonathan Taylor's back. Yeah, maybe he steals some work, but I'm not sure that matters. If anything, it might be a tide that lifts all ship situations. And then they added A.D. Mitchell from Texas this offseason to a receiver room that already has Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Downs, who showed a lot of juice in his first season, and even players like Jelani Woods are back for this offense. The win total is 8.5, so healthy there too. Everything sets up for Richardson to be a breakout candidate. And the other reason I like him is you have some pocket passers that are near his ADP or ahead of him, particularly Patrick Mahomes. This is nothing to do with Patrick Mahomes as an individual. He is the best pure passer in the NFL. What he does lack is any semblance of rushing ability. That's probably a step too far. He rushes rarely and mainly in the playoffs, but nothing to the likes of Anthony Richardson. And we've seen players like Lamar Jackson dominate this style of play, even if they're not the best passers. Next up, we are going to go to our second quarterback, DeShaun Watson. This might be a fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, and we're approaching the third time. But DeShaun Watson, where he sits right now, ADP is 162, the quarterback 16 in our ranking, so he is ahead of ADP and pretty far at that. But there's a couple reasons to like him. Some of them are the same as what we talked about with Anthony Richardson, mainly the supporting cast. You look at the offensive line, this is a top 5 unit in the NFL. The supporting cast, Amari Cooper, David Njoku, they add Jerry Jeudy. They have Elijah Moore, and they actually have a lot invested in some of these receivers on the periphery, like Cedric Tillman's a second-round pick, who potentially works his way into a larger role, probably at the expense of Elijah Moore, but that's not saying much. It's a unit that really made Joe Flacco shine, and now it's basically going to be now or never for DeShaun Watson. They let Flacco walk, and rumor has it that they didn't want to create strife in the locker room. One player who excels with the supporting cast, one player who's failed. But Watson's going to have every opportunity to succeed. And there's a lot to like on the profile, just not the last 2 years. If you look at his career, he averages 8.2 yards per attempt. That's pass attempt. Last 2 years, 6.0, 6.3. Now, those have been limited, one due to suspension, one due to injury, so it is a bit hard to parse this. But the reason I do think he's a value, even if he plays towards the bottom end of what we've seen in his career, He has rushing potential. He had 3 straight seasons of 495 rushing yards before the two seasons that were shortened by suspension and injury. With that offensive line, this is a unit that should allow him to rush a little bit too. If he puts up 500-ish rushing yards, he's undervalued simply on his rushing potential, not even including what he's doing as a passer. So what I like about Watson is there's a lot of path to him succeeding on an offense that's extremely good, talented all around him, and we've seen him do it, just not recently. So we'll take him as a strong value here, QB 16. Currently, he's one of my most exposed quarterbacks in all of best ball. Last one we'll talk about as a value is Daniel Jones, coming off a horrific season, a season shortened by injury, ACL. His ADP is 195.3. So the first thing I like about him is you're spending one of your final round picks. You're not spending anything close to high draft capital on this player. We have him as QB 24, which is well ahead of where you're going to find him in a lot of rankings. The stats, they don't wow you. It was shortened by injury, so that makes sense. But if you go to the efficiency, that also is not something that is going to wow you either. Last year was his worst season in recent memory, but I'm old enough to remember a season 2 years ago where Brian Daboll coaxed a career best year out of Daniel Jones, not only from a yards per attempt perspective, but he rushed for 708 yards in 2022. Now, heading into last year, it was a complete disaster. They had some losses on the offensive line. Some players they expected to step up did not, and there were injuries. It was basically negligence what they put on the field around Daniel Jones. They had Andrew Thomas get injured in week 1. That was awful. They were a revolving door at guard. Late in the year, some of you may remember, they signed Justin Pugh off the street. Great story. Guy comes off his couch, starts on the offensive line to immediately get QBs killed. So to ease some of these woes last year, they bring in Jermaine Illuminor and John Runyon at guard. Awesome. They have a second-round pick at center in John Michael Schmitz. And then their tackles, one being Andrew Thomas, has shown very good play. The other, Evan Neal's a top 10 pick. He hasn't lived up to it, but that was in 2022. Perhaps with better options around him, he can finally succeed here. Regardless, this is an upgraded offensive line. It's an upgraded receiver core with Malik Neighbors, Jalen Hyatt in year 2, Wan'Dale Robinson another year removed from the ACL, and even players like Theo Johnson in the tight end room. He put up his career best season with options far worse than that in 2022 when the Giants did make the playoffs. And the last thing is he has job security. A lot of you may be watching Hard Knocks or seeing clips on this. Basically, the team had a choice between Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones as far as payment goes, and their GM comes out and says something along the lines of they let Barkley walk because they invested so much money in Daniel Jones. This is the make or break year for him. They paid him all this money. He's going to get every opportunity to succeed. So whereas quarterbacks in this range like J.J. McCarthy, Drake May, Gardner Minshew, Russell Wilson have varying odds of whether they're going to even start the season or not, let alone make it through an entire season, you have a lot more security with Daniel Jones. So that'll round out our 3 quarterback values in terms of our tiers. If you'd like to check out the tiers, they're available for free on the site, so make sure to do that. Link will be below. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe and like button on the way out, and until next time, we'll see you later.